Welcome to Haseeb Electronics. So, you're at the workbench and you're trying to figure out this tiny little component, the SS41 Hall Effect Sensor. If you're a focused learner looking to demystify how this thing actually works, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we are setting the stage for a deep dive into diagnosing one of the most misunderstood parts out there. We're going to break down exactly how it operates, how to properly test it, and most importantly, we are going to focus heavily on diagnosing its most common failures so you aren't left pulling your hair out over a dead circuit. Let's get right into it. I want to hook you right away with the absolute biggest trap people fall into. Look at the left side here. You've got a normal mechanical switch. It's completely passive, right? You push it, contacts close, electricity flows. You don't need to supply power to the switch itself for it to function. But the SS41, totally different ballgame. It is an active sensor. It absolutely requires a dedicated power supply just to operate and essentially listen for a magnetic field. Treating this active sensor like a passive, normal switch is literally the #1 reason bench tests fail. If you take away nothing else from this explainer today, remember this fundamental difference. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We're going to cover the SS41 active difference, essential testing tools, a step-by-step testing guide, diagnosing common sensor failures, and finally, crucial warnings to remember. Section 1, the SS41 active difference. Let's break down what that means. The crucial takeaway here is that an active Hall effect sensor simply cannot be tested like a normal switch or standard transistor. And why is that? Because inside that tiny plastic package is an actual integrated circuit. It's got an amplifier and signal conditioning circuitry built right in. All of that internal logic, it needs electricity to wake up and actually do its job. This active characteristic is the foundational why behind the highly specific testing procedure we're about to explore. You can't just measure resistance across its pins to see if it's working. It needs juice. Moving to Section 2, essential testing tools. Let's gather what we need. Take a look around your workspace. Before we wire anything up, you need 3 simple but crucial tools to successfully test the sensor. First, a standard digital multimeter so we can read the output signals. Second, a 5-volt DC power supply. Now, this could be a bench power supply, a battery pack, or honestly, even the 5V pin straight from a microcontroller board. This is what gives us that vital active power we just talked about. And third, you need a small magnet. The magnet is the physical trigger that the sensor is designed to detect in the first place. Without it, you've got nothing to test against. Section 3, step-by-step testing guide. Let's set it up. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that orientation is absolutely everything. When you're looking at this 3-pin SIP, that's single inline package, you must be looking at the flat side of the sensor with those 3 little pins pointing straight down. If you look at the curved side, you'll wire it backwards and potentially fry it right on the spot. So, flat side facing you. From left to right, pin 1 is VCC, your positive 5-volt connection. Pin 2, right in the middle, is your ground. And pin 3 on the far right is your output. Memorize this orientation. Seriously, it will save you so much frustration. Let's walk through the actual procedure chronologically. Step 1, supply the power. Connect pin 1 to your 5V source and pin 2 to ground. Step 2, get your digital multimeter ready. Now make sure it is set to DC voltage so we can read that active output. Place your black probe on the ground connection and your red probe on pin 3, the output. Finally, step 3, take that small magnet and slowly, carefully move it toward the flat front face of the sensor. So, here is exactly what right looks like. If there's no magnet near the sensor, that output should just sit there happily at its default voltage. But when that magnet is brought close enough to be detected, boom, the output voltage changes noticeably. It'll suddenly snap from low to high or from high to low. Now, the specific direction it jumps just depends on the magnetic pole of your magnet and your particular circuit's pull-up configuration. When you pull the magnet away, the output should immediately return to that default level. If you see this pattern, congratulations, your sensor is working perfectly. Section 4, diagnosing common sensor failures. This is where things get really important. Because, let's be honest, this is the most frustrating diagnostic question you will face on the bench. What if the output never changes? You've got it all wired up perfectly, you're waving the magnet around like a magic wand, and your multimeter is just sitting there totally frozen on a single number. It's completely maddening. But hey, don't panic. This is where methodical troubleshooting comes in to save the day. Let's systematically walk through this so you can audit your own failed circuit. First up, check the power supply voltage. Is your 5V supply actually delivering 5 volts? Sometimes batteries die or breadboard power modules just fail. Measure it directly. Second, check the wiring and pin connections. Are you definitely looking at the flat side and not the curved side? Are your breadboard jumper wires actually making solid contact? Third, and this is such a common point of failure, check that you are using the correct side of the magnet. Remember, Hall effect sensors are often polarity sensitive. They might literally only trigger on the south pole. So if that output isn't changing, simply flip the magnet over in your hand and try the other pole. Finally, if you've confirmed 5 volts, perfect wiring, and you've tested both sides of the magnet, well, you have to consider whether the sensor itself is damaged. If it got wired backwards earlier, that internal IC might be permanently fried. Let's move to section 5 and see how this all builds into some crucial warnings to remember. I want to be incredibly clear here. Important. Never, ever test the SS41 in resistance or continuity mode. Look, when we're troubleshooting standard wires or simple passive switches, continuity mode is our absolute best friend. It gives us that satisfying little beep when a connection is made. But if you try to use continuity mode on an unpowered SS41, you will get absolutely nothing. You will guarantee a diagnostic failure and trick yourself into throwing away a perfectly good sensor. And this brilliantly illustrates a point from Haseeb Electronics that really brings us full circle. Since it is an active electronic device, it must be powered for proper testing. Your whole diagnostic process comes right back to respecting the fact that there is a tiny active computer chip inside that little piece of plastic, just waiting for the electricity it needs to do its job. So I'll leave you with this to ponder. If an improperly tested sensor gives you a false failure on the bench, how might that diagnostic confusion totally derail your entire circuit build? Think about it. You might spend hours rewriting code, ripping out microcontrollers, or doubting your entire overall design, all because you treated an active sensor like a passive switch. By truly understanding the nature of the SS41 and using the proper methodical diagnostic steps we went over today, you empower yourself to build with absolute confidence. So, get back to that workbench, power up those sensors, and keep exploring.